it's just a big corrupt. It's like we're dealing with the mob, except it's called the government.
Bitcoin's expected ascent to $110,000 has rekindled concerns of a financial bubble, with doubters asking whether this spike signals genuine economic revolution or speculative hysteria, while proponents perceive Bitcoin as a decentralized alternative to the currency-dominated financial system. Critics warn that such rapid value escalation could destabilize markets and weaken trust in digital assets. In his interview, Lepard emphasizes the disruptive potential of Bitcoin, describing it as a revolutionary instrument that empowers people over institutions in order to undermine the centralized authority of elites. Bitcoin disrupts the monetary status quo, creating anxiety among those wedded to existing financial systems. However, critics warn that Bitcoin's explosive surge could resemble previous financial bubbles, igniting concerns about speculative overvaluation. The rise of Bitcoin highlights the vulnerability of centralized systems for older generations that depend on fiat money. The understanding that fiat currencies might lose their perceived value puts Bitcoin at the forefront of a larger social change. But it is still unclear if the $110,000 price tag represents a sign of advancement or the beginning of a speculative bubble that is about to pop as discussions about the cryptocurrency's future value and potential effects on international finance heat up. Whether or not the $110,000 milestone is achieved, it will surely influence how society views financial accountability in the digital era. Proponents describe it as a reinvention of value and power, while others see it as a volatile asset driven by hype. To learn more, let's view snippets of Lepard's interview. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth material.
People who control the money. It's patently absurd that we have 12 people that can set the price of money. The price of money is the most important price in any economy because it drives capital allocation decisions, which then drive the correct productivity, and outputs as a result of, you want to invest in the right things. And so if you distort the price of money, you make malinvestments and you're wasting money on things that don't make any sense. And that's a cost to society. If we had not had all of the distortions that we've had, we would all be living so much better. If you look at all the technological innovation that's taken place in my lifetime and in your lifetime, we all should be working 20 hours a week. It's unbelievable how much technology has improved everywhere. And yet, because the money's broken, we're all still working like slaves because, we're on this hamster mill, hamster track of trying to stay ahead of inflation, which is always eating us up. It's a real problem, and everyone feels it, from the top to the bottom. That the one difference, though, that I'll point out, and you and I discussed before the show, is the people at the top, know the game. They understand what's coming. They understand how to play it, and they can make inflation work for them. They actually can get, inflation. The working person, the average citizen, has trouble with inflation. Their salary is fixed. When things cost more, their lifestyle gets worse. People at the top, they can actually root for inflation because they can borrow cheap, and the inflation pushes up the value of their assets. And that's why the wealth inequality is as it is. So the Keynesian economics school and the Federal Reserve and the federal government, they're all thick as thieves. They're all in the same, in the same camp. And so, if you're a Fed economist, you get paid by the Fed, you get big consulting contracts and gigs, you're part of, quote unquote, the system. And, you get rich appointments afterwards. You can, you sit on board seats, et cetera, et cetera. Larry Summers, who was the president of Harvard University as an economics professor there, he made $20 million in consulting fees, consulting to Wall Street, when he was Secretary of the Treasury. Before he was after he was Secretary of the Treasury. So, the point is that there's a kind of a system of bribes and corruption. How do these people go to Congress making $200,000 a year and end up worth millions? It's because they get things from other parties that are self-interested and that pay them to bend the policies and the rules in their favor. And so, the Fed has just totally dominated the economics discussion, and they've tried to make anyone. The Austrian model perfectly explains and predicts what's happened to our economy since the founding of this country. And the book takes you through that if you're willing to wade through. There are two chapters that some people have told me they're kind of the rough sledding, because I really dig into the history. I started in 1789. I take you through all the financial developments up to the present day. And if you look at it, the Austrian model could have predicted it and explains all of it. And the Keynesian model is wrong and doesn't predict any of it and doesn't explain all of it or any of it. And it's almost laughable how bad they are. And I've got tons and tons of examples in the book. And yet they continue in power. And the reason they do is because the government supports them, because that Keynesian model allows the government to overspend and have the goodies to hand out, so that when you go in as a representative making a couple $100,000 a year, you end up worth millions. And so it's just a big corrupt. It's like we're dealing with the mob, except it's called the government. and you know what? We don't have to put up with it. We just don't have to put up with it. But we can't be stupid about this, because the mob promises certain people certain things, and that buys a vote, and the vote might be, it's amazing how little people can get bought off with, right? I mean, okay, send me a $2,000 stimmy check and I'll vote for you. Meanwhile, out the back door, they're robbing you, many, many times that $2,000 in terms of inflation and other stuff. And yet you'll be bought off by that check. It's ridiculous, right?